glad to see you back for episode number 22. That tells me that you made it through 21, which is exciting because those can be hard times getting through 21. Today's episode is with Merrick Van Landingham. He is a homeschooling father. He has a couple of different podcasts out there. Currently, the Liberty Forge is where you can catch him. And then he also had a show, I guess, called RadicaLogic, which is a pretty good podcast that it's got a lot of content in there. And if some of the stuff we talked about today really, piques your interest, you should go check it out and hear what he's got to say. It's worth your time. It is a long interview today, so just gonna get right into it. There is some coarse language, so if some words bother you, you might not want to listen today, and go back and peruse the archives if you're not all caught up. With that said, let's go plant those liberty seeds with Merrick Van Landingham. All right, so my guest today is Merrick Van Landingham. He is a podcaster. He is over at hosting at the Liberty Forge, and they just pulled in a new co-host, Jeremy. I can never say his last name right, but it starts with
it's
an H.
Heisenbergler, or what is it? What's the best one? Helen Keller. Yeah.
Okay.
Jeremy Helen Keller.
So, Jeremy Helen Keller over at Liberty Forge is helping out with Merrick, and it's a pretty good little show. Go check it out. But Merrick is here today to talk a little bit about some homeschooling. So, Merrick, I think how many kids do you have?
I have two sons. My oldest son is 25, and my youngest is 9. Okay.
So you homeschooled some, and now you're back doing it again, I guess, right? Is that kind of
correct? Yeah. And just to clear the air right up front, what I'm doing with my youngest son would be more accurately described as unschooling. Some people call it radical unschooling, but in what my understanding of the educational process, it's just not stripping down and removing the natural curiosity and desire for learning that's built into all of us.
Right. Okay. And we'll dig into that in a little bit, I think, hopefully. But yeah. So were you homeschooled as a kid, or?
Well, no, I was not. I went through about 17 years of both compulsory education and secondary level education. I graduated from government school, all right, great. Got my scholarships and ended up going to Mississippi State University in the physics program, and then this is no joke, people, I ended up going to Mississippi University for women. Yes, I did. Admitting men since 1982. And then when people ask me, what did you study there? I naturally say women. I did not do well in secondary education. I really didn't. The structured schooling was never my ball of wax.
Yeah.
I'm a natural autodidact. And so even when I was in high school and even when I was in college and all the years since, that was over 20 years ago, I've always been just a natural learner through autodidaction, meaning learning on your own.
Right.
And it was shortly thereafter. I mean, I quit college in 97, and in the next year, 98, I started teaching, scuba diving. And yeah, it's completely different in a lot of ways, although it's not. So even though I'm just teaching scuba, okay, if I'm teaching your Econ 101 course and you get an F and you don't show up, you don't die.
Right.
If I'm teaching you diving and you don't learn Archimedes' principle, Dalton's law, Boyle's law, and all of those things in physics and physiology, and you screw up underwater, you're going to die on my watch. Mm-hmm. And so even though it's very different, it's really kind of the same. The same styles of learning still apply, and the same rules are still there. What we talk about when I used to train people to become instructors, and I would talk about, okay, the three things that we need in order to retain learning is primacy, recency, and repetition. And that applies whether I'm teaching you history or philosophy or diving or underwater basket weaving or anything of that nature. It kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So how was that like in high school and stuff then? If that was kind of your learning style, was it a struggle? Were you fighting it? Just kind of go with it and take it as it was, or?
No, it was a big struggle for me. And at the time, I had never been exposed to any homeschooling or unschooling or even the term autodidaction or anything of that nature. My parents were very traditional. Mm-hmm. And they were like, no, you send your kid to the government for 12 years and then they come back and then hopefully they get good marks and they do well on the ACT, which I did. And then they get a scholarship and then they go to college, because I had to pay for my own college through partial scholarship, and the rest of it I was working on the side and paying in cash. And my experience in the government school system was abject boredom. And that's not a joke. And I say that and everybody's like, oh, you're being arrogant because, oh, you think you're so smart. No, it's because they're telling me things that have no meaning to my life, and that are also things that I already know, that I've learned on my own. So having my oldest son, Derek, go through the government school system and he went through charter school and magnet school. And he turned out really sharp. But with Jet, my youngest son, who's now 9, almost 10, all it took for me was I put him into a private Christian academy for kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And you would think that would be enough to remove him from the indoctrination. And it was exactly the opposite. And after one academic year, every day when he would come home, I would have to undo what they had done. I mean, I went to his graduation. They bring in some cops who were standing there like Billy Badass. Can I curse on your show? Because when I talk about education, I'm more likely to curse.
How about it? It's all right.
Okay. So these stupid morons are standing there with their arms crossed and, hands on their guns and everything and flags, and you got to stand up and put your hand on your heart. And I'm the guy who's not doing it because I'm not indoctrinated. And now everybody's looking at me weird, and now they're looking at my kid weird. And I'm like, we're out of here. We're punching out.
Yeah.
This plane is going down and we are out of here. And I told my wife in a very, very certain manner that this is the way it's going to be. I have been a professional educator for the better part of 2 decades at this point. And I have a fundamental depth of knowledge that is enough to, teach someone young. I'm also not a statist. I am proudly, just a voluntarist or an anarchist or however you want to frame that. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe in preaching the state education mantra that is just, it's Swiss cheese full of lies. And so I said, let me try it for a couple of years. And if you don't like it at the end, you can always change it back. And she said, okay. And that's what we did. And the more we got into homeschooling, the more it turned into unschooling, because my son is, he's way the fuck out there on the spectrum, and he's a handful, and he really learns best by just leaving him the hell alone.
Yeah.
He is autodidactic just like I am. And the wife gets frustrated with it. Now I'll give her, props for being patient with that very part of it. But But now he's almost 10 years old. He's been under my purview for all of these years. And, Jeremy here is the Cesar Millan, the New York version of the dog whisperer. And he's done animals for, I don't know, over 20 years. And he keeps telling me, he's like, your son keeps teaching me stuff about animals that I never even knew. And I do this for a living. And I'm like, yeah, he kind of does that to me. And he's come out here as I'm doing stuff today, probably 3 or 4 times. And he'll just walk up and go, Daddy, yes, I have a question. Okay. What is it? And he's like, well, if somebody could defy physics, what would this mean? And I'm like, wow. Okay. Gee whiz. Why couldn't you ask me an academic question or something? Now you're giving me the hard stuff. But the fact that he's in there all day thinking his way through things and soaking up the things that he's interested in and then regurgitating them like, I don't know, just it's almost, it's not rote learning like how we learn to study for a test. It's different. It's I'm learning this because I'm interested in it. Therefore, it becomes permanent learning.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's that hands-on, it's something they genuinely care about. And when they actually participate in that manner, it becomes their knowledge. It's not just knowledge in a textbook that you read about. It's knowledge that you learned because you wanted to learn and you did it. You learned it. And I think that sticks with you so much longer than, just learning something for a test or because somebody tells you have to, so your son went to kindergarten. It was a private kindergarten. Was that, what made you guys decide to go private kindergarten instead of like public school kindergarten?
I'm very anti-government school.
Okay. So
being a product of it. Now you have to understand that I went to, so my high school years were in North Mississippi during a period of race riots. And me being, and here's where I have to kind of tell on myself, I was not a racial purist or anything like that, but I was raised in a household where, what our joke now is everything that's wrong with the world, everybody looks up and goes, thanks, Obama, and that's our joke. Well, where I grew up, it was fucking niggers.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to use a lot of these words, guys, on your podcast, but that was necessary to convey my point. That literally that is the purview under which I grew up.
Yeah.
And when these race riots were going on, I was carrying a gun from my sophomore year, carrying a gun on me in school from my sophomore year all the way until I graduated. And It was bad. I got thrown in a jail cell with a guy that I had just had a fight with in the upstairs high school bathroom like 2 days before. It was really rough. And I understand as I got older and I became a professional educator, I started reading things about education, and I started reading people like Edward Griffin and John Taylor Gatto. And when I read Dumbing Us Down, everything made sense to me. I didn't even have to read the whole book. I was just going through it. And I'm like, oh yeah, and especially this right here. So I wanted to give my son a leg up on the competition in life by not having his curiosity stolen from him and just essentially being emotionally raped. That's a strong word. I get it, guys. But essentially having it stripped away and raped from you to the point that even if you're a round peg, you're going in this square hole, man.
Yeah.
And they're going to turn you into cookie cutter. So I started doing podcasts initially to talk about education. And I went through, the history of the compulsory Prussian style education and, talked about all of those things and where it came from and why it was not designed to create smart people. It was designed to create factory workers and obedient citizens. Mm-hmm. And I was noticing that a lot of people really weren't paying attention to it. And the ones who were still had their kids in government school. And by the way, I don't call it public school for a reason. It's government school because it's a kiddie indoctrination camp.
It is.
Yep. So that was pretty easy. And I'm like, wow, well, it just so happens that you are an educator. So why don't you do this and not beat the life out of this child? And let's just see how it goes. And especially with him really being kind of like uber autistic, it works for him because, there are things we have to understand about learning styles. What if you give me 40 people in a classroom and I'm a government school teacher, these 40 kids or 30 kids or however many you have, they're all going to be about the same age. And, it'll be fifth grade science. Okay. So at least I have that. Now, what about if I have a class of 12 in a scuba class that range in age from 10 to 70 in every different demographic that you can imagine? But the only reason they're in one room together is because, I've always want to learn how to scuba dive. Okay, well, that's great. But there are a lot of different styles of learning. And we're all, as individuals, we understand that we learn in different ways. So you may be a visual learner. You may be an oral learner, auditory. You may be a verbal linguistic learner. You may be a physical or kinesthetic learner. You may be a logical or mathematical learner. You may be a social or a solitary learner. All of those things come into play, and everybody's different. So how do I present you with the proper form and context of material that also meets your interest to keep your interest peaked when I don't even know you and you're just one of 30 in a herd? How you can't do that.
No.
So I have to sit and watch my son. I'm giving you long answers to short questions, and I'm sorry, but hey, you asked.
I'll go.
I have to watch my son and see what's working for him. And then I just play off of that. And that's what I'll give him. If it's YouTube videos that are working, I'll turn him loose. I can go cut the yard. I can do the garden. I can do all kinds of things. He can sit and watch YouTube. And then at the end of the day, when we eat dinner, we can sit and have a conversation about, all right, what did you see? And he's like, oh, did you know that, the zygote splits into this and that and the murder and did you know that calcium is the thing? And I'm like, I didn't know any of that, but apparently you do. So yeah, it's effective, but it's not without its pitfalls, and I'm sure you want to get into that too at some point.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. Does that ever give you any pause, turning your kid loose on YouTube, on the internet, on everything out there?
Every day. Let me postulate first and formulate my answer before I just spew. Yes, it does. However, my take on the way that I am raising my child is quite different than a lot of other people. I've stopped and asked myself, as an individualist, or anarchist or whatever you want to say, what am I trying to achieve? What is my end goal? Well, my end goal is to raise someone who is going to turn into an adult, whether I like it or not, a young adult, and who is going to eventually want to become successful. So I have to bear that in mind. For instance, he grows food in our garden. He grows tomatoes and squash. Mm-hmm. And he goes out to the front of our little homestead here. And when the neighbors drive by, he's got a stand and he sells food. Organic, homegrown, his food. And he's making money. Well, that's his economics lesson. I don't need to teach him Henry Hazlitt all the time. Although, we do that. He's got every Tuttle Twins book that's ever been written. But nice. I don't want to push him into being me. I want him to understand what a hustle is. Mm. That's one of the most important things I think in life is understanding how to run a hustle. And that if that's going to be a 9 to 5 for you, bro, that's cool. If that's what you want, get into something that you're excited about and you're not really working. I'm in a business now that I never thought I would be in. It's just something I used to do when I was in college to make money. I mean, I'm cleaning condos. Why would you do that? Well, because that's my hustle and because I enjoy it. Well, for him, it's like he wants to farm more, grow more food, and sell it, either on the side of the road or at the farmer's market or at the flea market or something. And I'm like, yeah, you need to do that. You need to understand the value of your labor as compared to what the market is demanding. Now, that is Henry Hazlitt, and, that is economics in one lesson, but we're doing it in real life, and he understands it. And if we treat him like an adult, then when he grows up, when other people talk to him like an adult, he'll just kind of think that's normal because that's the way everybody's been talking to me my whole life. I'm not saying we're throwing heavy stuff on him. I still protect him, but I am preparing him for the next, let's say, 3 years of his life. And then 3 years down the road, I'll be preparing him rather for, sorry, I stutter. I'll be preparing him for the next 3 years, and so on ad infinitum, ad nauseum.
Yep.
And also with languages, my wife her native tongue is Cantonese, and she also speaks Mandarin, and she also speaks Malay, and I speak some Spanish, and then we have English. So, and we also speak Bahasa Indonesia, which is really esoteric, so that doesn't matter. But we're trying to expose him to as many of those things as we can, so that he has an understanding. So a lot of times when he asks me a question, like today, we sat down and had a discussion about. He asked me a question about property, and he asked me if our dog, who was laying at my feet, my 110-pound bulldog, laying underneath me like a pillow, if Tank was my property. And I said, well, technically, yes, but let's understand the word property, from Latin. And then we start from the base and build up instead of starting in the middle, like the bullshit that you're going to get in the government school where the teacher is dumber than the kid. Yeah. So that's where we're at.
Nice. I imagine that was a interesting conversation you guys had. All right. So
yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. He's not going to get that in government school. I guarantee you that.
No, not at all. Your wife then, how was that convincing her to pull your son out of the Christian school there? I mean, was she all right with that? Did it take some convincing, or that was one of, like, my wife and I had so many conversations this summer before we decided to pull our son out of kindergarten and not send him back to first grade.
Sure.
It's trying to weigh all that stuff. And we were pretty much on the same page. One day I'd be a little more for it, and next day she would be, and, went back and forth. But what was that like for you guys?
It's been really up and down. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. Although I could sandbag you easy and say, "Oh no, man, she knew I was awesome and I'd be the best dad coach ever." No, not at all. The truth of the matter is, she knew that I'd been an educator forever. Mm-hmm. I was already teaching when I met her, and that was over 20 years ago. So that was not really the question. And that's not me pat myself on the back, guys. I'm not a good educator because I'm not patient in a lot of ways, like most people are. I expect you to keep up with the same speed that I think at. And so, yeah, that does become an issue sometimes, but that's an aside. With her, she saw what was happening. As far as the indoctrination just in kindergarten. And all I had to tell her was, it only gets worse from here. And every afternoon we get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to hit that bus, and he's surrounded by basically a bunch of other kids who are assholes. Mm-hmm. Because kids are assholes. Y'all were all kids once, right? And don't You probably remember that. You were probably an
Oh, yeah.
asshole, and so was your bully friend, and so was everybody else. You don't know you couldn't find your ass with both hands and a flashlight, yet you're walking around like you know everything in the world. Okay, so that was easy enough to talk her out of that. And I said, just give me a year and give him to me, and let's just let him play out in the yard and play in the garden and learn life skills and do chores and work with us, which he has done since then. Since he was 5 years old, he comes to work with us. We go into the condos and he helps clean. Help. And I'm using air quotes here, but just a feeling of accomplishment. He went with us today to do one, and we can actually pay him for that. So now he's an entrepreneur at 9 years old. And so every year I'm trying to keep my language clean, but she bitches a lot but here's the thing. And I'm trying to get to the real crux of your question. She bitches a lot because he's here all the time. Mm-hmm. And now it's a crimp on our style because we're surrounded by our kid because we don't have the government babysitter hanging on to him for 8 hours a day. All right. But she understands that for what it is, understands why we're doing it, understands what we're doing, and understands the trials and tribulations that come along with it, which it's not easy. Educating a young man, especially one as rambunctious and somebody that, and when I've mentioned autism several times, he really is. I mean, I'm on the Asperger's scale. He's a little bit under there, but he really is. I'm not making that up like a lot of parents do to make excuses because their kid's an asshole. No, my kid really is freaking autistic. And so, yeah, you have to be patient with him. But she has really stuck in there the whole time, just with an understanding that this is important. This is probably the most important thing that we're doing. It's like, okay, we get up and we go to work. Why do we do it? Well, to make money. Okay, why do we make money? Well, so we can have good quality of life. Okay, what is a good quality of life? Well, one is not having your child freaking indoctrinated by the state, and you have to undo it. And then they come home and it's 3 hours of homework, and then you have to have them in bed. And then now we're right back to 6 o'clock in the morning to ship them off to the state again. Okay, that is the definition of freaking insanity, guys. And to us, it just makes sense not to do that. There's your long answer to a very short question.
No, it's I struggle with that sometimes, that we have 4 right now. Our oldest is 9, 6, 5, and 2. And our 5-year-old.
Good God, man.
Well,
I'm sorry.
The younger 2 are adopted, so they kind of came in later. But she was in preschool, public preschool, and she just finished up, and we're trying to do like a 4-day schedule for homeschool. And so we just started, and everybody's home, and it's tough. It's one of those things where sometimes in the back of your head, you're almost like, oh, if I sent them to school, I would have like 8 hours of quiet when I could do this and I could do that, and I get all these chores done, I get all this stuff done. But then where would you be? You're right back to spending all that time undoing everything that got done in school. So it's a trade-off, what do you...
Can I interject with just a thought there, and based on personal experience? That's the only way that I convey things is based on personal experience. I don't prescribe, and I don't say, here's what you need to do. Here's what I did and why it's so great. And please buy my CD and subscribe to my newsletter or anything like that. But I do have a good bit of experience here, 25 years worth. So, what I've found is I'm a very busy guy, and between my work and my side hustle and doing the podcast and blogging, and we're on a pretty big piece of property, so it takes a lot of work there. Mm-hmm. During all of those hours where I am occupied doing those things, I can leave my son alone. And what I find is that he will figure out how to work that Khan Academy, which I really, between Khan Academy, Liberty Classroom, Udemy, MIT Online, Mystery Science. Oh my God, there's so many resources. And just YouTube, he will find something he's into that is usually based on actual learning. Not just, I mean, yeah, he does the crazy, Japanese anime stuff and all that, like all other kids. But hey, that's part of amusement, which, once again, folks, from Latin, the lack of, muse, thought, which is why we watch stupid shows on television like How I Met Your Mother or 30 Rock or, okay, that's what we do. But you got to give them that too. But in the interim times, he will learn things on his own. Once again, autodidaction. Mm-hmm. And then he'll come to me after he has consumed enough data points to fill his brain up and start thinking about it. Then he'll come to me and he'll be, Daddy, yes, sir. What is Mercury? Well, it's both an element and a planet. Which one are you talking about? No, I'm talking about the element. And we'll go through some physics and some chemistry. Yeah. And, people see that and they're like, oh, well, all right, fine. That gets them off my back. My wife sees it and she's like, all right, that's cool. Even though he's driving everybody crazy, at least he's learning, and his passion for learning, as John Taylor Gatto talks about so much in the underground history of government education, and then in Dumbing Us Down, or I forget the names of them, but he talks about just how it's created to beat the curiosity out of them. You're studying for an SAT or an ACT. You're studying for college. You're bound for college. You're going there. My friend Brett Venat of School Sex Project has done just myriad. He has a compendium of work on this, and he went through it too. And understanding how horrible it is. It's not designed. First, okay, it's neither designed to teach valuable information, nor will it allow for independent thought, and nor will it allow for the educator who really is so excited about conveying this information to people. It hamstrings them and will not allow them to convey that in the way that they want to do it. And then they enter the world of Common Core and everything else, and it's all studying for the SAT. It's garbage. And I understand that. Yeah. And I'm like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm trying to quit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you gotta quit. You gotta pull the plug on it and do what works for you, and do what works for your family. I think. I mean, I keep flirting with the idea of unschooling. I don't know if I quite have it in me to kind of relinquish some of that control. I went to school to be a teacher, so it's kind of one of those things where like, I don't know. But how did you guys take that plunge? Because I know you said you kind of, maybe you didn't start out quite doing the unschooling thing, but you kind of evolved into that, or did you just straight up come out of kindergarten in first grade and it was radical unschooling?
No, it was an evolution for sure. But no, that was absolutely an evolution because I started with a compendium of criteria that I wanted him to do. Different curricula, different goalposts, different things. And in the state of Florida, you have to have an evaluation by a state approved evaluator once a year. And so our first year, I was nervous as a long-tailed cat in a rocking chair factory.
Yeah.
Taking my kid up there, and she's one of these super Christian people and wants to meet in the Chick-fil-A and all of that. And I'm like, okay, well, this could end badly because first off, we're not Christian. So I'm like, well, there's strike one. And two, the kid's like batshit crazy half the time. So there's the strike two. And then, okay. But she was a former public educator. and of children his age. She taught, I think, from first grade up to like fifth grade for 20 years or 30 years. She's older. And she's like, "You're doing just fine." And I said, "Well, I'm glad you think that. Can you sign this piece of paper here?" She goes, "Oh yeah, sure." But she said, "Just keep doing what you're doing." And that was kind of the, Bilderberger or whatever they call it, secret symbol of you're doing fine. Leave them alone.
Yeah.
Leave them alone. And the more I've looked into and talked about, I've done a lot of podcasts on homeschooling and unschooling over the last few years. And the more I get into it and the more I look at it, the more you leave them the hell alone, the better they get. You just have to be patient enough to put up with their bull crap while they're in the process of learning. And, the way you sell it is, "Hey, babe, give it a year, give it 2 years, whatever. And if it's not working, we can always go back," just like I said. And chances are they're going to see within the first year or so, like, holy crap, look at the kids just absorbing shit like a sponge. Yeah. And, I give them a daily Latin lesson, because that was one of the things I grew up with. My mom speaks Latin. I grew up, that was taught to me as a first language along with English. So I'd give them some of that. And every time something comes up, if the word is X, I'll say, "Okay, from Latin, which means this." And then he gets to learn a double meaning, not only what the word means, but where it came from. How can you tell me a government school is going to give your kid that? And they say, "Well, what about," okay, I'm going to answer your next question that you haven't even asked yet. "What about the socialization?"
Yeah.
What? And I'm doing that in SpongeBob voice for a freaking reason, because you guys are, not you, but I'm in second person. You are fucking morons. Okay, socialization. Well, what you're telling me is I need to stick my kid in a cramped space with 30 other people his age who, once again, don't know shit from apple butter. And that is how they're going to get their social skills. And they're going to be crammed into a desk. And if they have to use a bathroom, they have to raise their hand and wait and ask permission. That sounds a lot like a gulag to me.
Yeah.
My kid is learning about personal freedom. And along the way of learning about being his own, the smallest minority is the individual. Along with that, he's learning how to learn. He's learning how to learn. That is not a difficult concept, but it's something that we never allow our children to have. That's how I sell it, is they know how to learn. Let them do it. Let them do it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that, we really appreciate about homeschooling, is that they have that space to figure out how to learn. They can figure out what works and what doesn't work for them. And when you're put in a classroom with, 30 other kids, the teacher can't speak to every child. The teacher can't, speak to every child's needs, can teach this way or that way. It's one way, maybe another way. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. Maybe you got it the first time and now you got to sit there for half the day bored while the teacher continues on. And it's just, the homeschooling is so much more freedom in that sense. That when they figure out how to do it, when they figure it out, they can go on, they can do something else, and we enjoy it. It's been good.
Well, I'm glad that you've had a good experience with it, like we have. And anybody who tells you it's easy is just completely blowing smoke up your skirt, because it's not, because children aren't easy. It's just not, it's not true. But it's neither here nor there when it comes to educating them. If they're around you, they're going to be really freaking annoying, and you have to deal with that. And they're going to constantly be, pulling on your coattail or your skirt, "Hey, mommy, daddy, mommy, daddy, mommy." Okay. If you don't want that, I have a better idea. Don't have kids. Okay. Now I'm only dealing with two, and one of them's grown and gone, and that he's not a problem. He is squared away as can be, and he's rocketing his way right up to the top. So I'm only dealing with the one young one. And, I don't know. It's frustrating. There are times when I'll tell him that I'm ready to soccer kick him in the head. That's just hyperbolic. I don't mean it.
Yeah.
He understands hyperbole. But I'm like, dude, you've got me like, here's my line in the sand, and you just walked over it and kicked sand in my face on top of it. So, is there a sacrifice to be made to do that and have your kid with you all the time? Yeah, sure. Is it beneficial to them in the long run? Yes, absolutely. I know that to be true. And once again, I don't prescribe things, but I will make declarative statements when I think that they're just, and this is just. It is absolutely a better alternative. He is not indoctrinated. My son refers to police as road pirates, and I didn't. Yeah, and I did not even teach him that. He came up with that on his own. Even though I call them road pirates, I don't teach him to be an anarchist. I do teach him to be an individualist, which I believe is important. You know, you are a member. Everybody's talking about minorities in the government schools, and they're doing quotas, and they're doing all these things. Oh, okay, fine. You want to be a minority? Be a member of the smallest minority of all, the individual, and that's what you are. And you are different than everybody else. You learn in a different way. You learn at a different rate. You have different interests, and you want to talk about different things. Be a member of the smallest minority. Be the individual. And the only way that you can really do that is by staying home and learning on your own. Otherwise, you become a part of the collective.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't really develop I think it's very difficult. Actually, you can, but I think it's very difficult to truly develop, an individual self-identity, self-awareness in a public school, where you're just packed like, just crammed in there and forced to be around people that I don't know, you might not otherwise be around. I have a choice. I know who I want to hang out with and who I don't want to hang out with, and kids, when you put them in school like that, they don't have that choice, and they're not able to make those decisions, and that affects them.
Of course it does, and it's a very permanent thing because you're attacking them with this at their very formative years.
Your older son, did you homeschool him all the way later on, or was he in like magnet schools or charter schools?
No, he went from a government school to a charter school to a magnet school, and he was bored most of the time, as he explains it today. He's way too intelligent for that. And that, once again, not just, oh, look at my kid, he's so smart. Now, it's just that anybody with a couple of brain cells to rub together is going to outpace the slowest kid in a classroom of 30 kids. That's just, if you do the maths, that's just the way it is. And so he has learned trades and ways and things since he got out, being 25 now. So he's been out for 7 years, and he decided not to go to college and do trade instead, which has worked out really well for him. And that, if I can put in a plug for that, that works out well for a lot of people, because we wasted a lot of money on college. My wife did. I did. Her brother is going to be paying off. Her brother, the doctor, is going to be paying off his student loan debt for the rest of his life. And is it worth it? Well, I don't know. I guess that's up to you. But I would say for the lion's share of us, the answer would be no. And if that's the case, you can get a head start by, one, being homeschooled and unschooled, and actually learning the things that you need to learn. I mean, he sits there and watches us run our business. What more important could you have? What could be more important than that? Other than teaching them this is how life works, and how to clean. We clean and manage rental condos and stuff. So you get to see all of that, and you get to see how property works and how money works and how, when a check comes in and I get it and then I have to send it back out to the government, the property taxes. He gets to see all of that. What could possibly be more important than that? If I send him to government school, they're going to teach him how to balance his account? Not, I don't think so. Are they going to teach him how to change the oil in his car? Probably not. Well, this is what my mentor taught me, what he called, this is shit you should know. And that was it. It's just like, he would just kind of stomp his foot and go, this is shit you should know. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, let me pay attention to that then. How to cook. I'm always drawn back to that Heinlein quote, a man should be able to, if you remember that one, you should be able to what is it? Skin a deer and con a ship and plan an invasion and cook a tasty meal and comfort the dying and die gallantly and on and on and on. Well, yeah, that as men, that's what I believe we should be able to do. Everybody asks me, what is it that you do? And I'm like, I can do about 10,000 different things. You're bound to like one of them. And I just want to convey that information to my son because it's been very effective for me. And I don't just talk shit on the internet like half of these morons. Sorry, too soon. Hashtag too soon. I actually live it. I live the lifestyle that I want. I retired and quit my job at 37 years old so that I could do exactly what I'm doing right now. I want my son to see it. I want him to live it. I want him to understand it. And if he wants to follow in my footsteps, he can. And if he wants to go completely opposite into corporate, he can do that too. But he will have the chops already built in so that he can do it.
Even if a kid decides to go into corporate, having that base, knowing how to pay bills, how to run books, how to do all that stuff, those are all valuable tools no matter where you end up. That's just the basis of surviving in this world, no matter what you end up surviving doing. It's and it boggles my mind when people don't know how to do some things that are just so basic, just like things you grew up, you just knew because it was just stuff you knew what to do, you knew how to do it just because, so that
well, you're on task and on target. What it sounds like is that you're a little reticent still and feeling, no, I'm serious. And I'm not making fun of you. Trust me. I mean, I'm the guest on your show. I'm actually being complimentary that you're paying attention to what's going on. But you already get it. Okay. My grandfather, on my mom's side grew up during the Depression, and he was one of 11 children. He was the youngest, and right in the middle of the Depression, his father died, and he became kind of paterfamilias, and he needed money to plant crops that he could sell to feed his entire family, including all of his siblings and his mom, for that year. 11 years old, he went to the bank, and he sat in front of the banker, and they loaned him money at 11 because they knew that he was going to, plant them and pay the money back, which he did. And that level of self-sufficiency, okay, that's lost on us, brother. And I know that because we live in the first world right now, and we'd be like, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do about this. But he did. And, my father was very much the same way. And all I can tell you is that understanding how it used to be, and without getting into talking about, how Horace Mann really pressed the Prussian compulsory education system onto the general populace in 1850, and it's just manifested since then. We won't go into that. If y'all want to hear that, you can listen to some of the other things I've done on just that subject. But I want my son to be able to do anything that he wants to do and understand bullshit where it is and not get caught in that trap. if you have to stand in front of the magical sky cloth every morning, let me hit some nerves here real quick, and recite a pledge that was written by an avowed socialist named Sir Francis Bellamy before you can even get on with your curricula, which probably will be about 50 minutes of something you're not interested in. And about the time you're getting interested in it, the bell rings and you get up like a cow. You move to a different room. You go on to a different subject. You get another, well, maybe let's say 35 minutes because, it takes time and you settle down. And that's not a very good way to do education. That's what I'm saying.
No, it's not, but that's what we do. That's because it's worked, right? It worked for so long, right? I mean, we have such a stupendous education system. Just keep doing what we're doing. Doesn't make any sense to me, but yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't to me either. And it's because your eyes are open and you're actually looking around and you see it.
I'm trying, and I think that's one of the trying to share some of that. I think with this little podcasty thing, but who knows?
Well, I'm glad you're doing it. I think the more of us that are out here doing it and actually having an open conversation, I understand that people get angry with what I'm saying because what I'm saying requires them to admit that they wasted 15,000 hours of their life. And also they have to admit that they're subjecting their own children to the very same indoctrination and torture. And I have a very simple retort to that. I mean, if anybody's hating on me right now and they're like, who the hell is this guy? And what the hell is he? Okay, fine. Let me ask you one simple question. Okay, you went through 15,000 hours of compulsory education through the government. Great. You should be an expert. Normally, your first name would be doctor after 15,000 hours. But if after 15,000 hours, you still feel like you are unqualified to teach your 5-year-old basic math, that should be your litmus test. That should tell you everything that you need to know about what I'm saying.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing my student teaching, one of the teachers that I was working with, sent her kid to like a private school. And it seemed so strange to me at the time, why would you send your kid to a private school if you're working in a public school? Like that doesn't jive. What are you saying about public school? And then eventually, years down the road, here I am looking at homeschooling my kids and I'm like, what did I just do? Like, what did I just do with my life prior to this? What was that time that I spent in college? What did I just do? And it's a huge reckoning, when you have to sit down and think, what did I do with all this time and why do I feel like I need to do this? Or what was so important about this school? What did I actually learn there? And you realize that what you learned, you can do on your own. It's so much better, especially now with all the internet and all the, like you said, the Khan Academy and all the resources out there are just immense. Even if you feel like, you're not equipped to teach your kids, there are so many resources out there that are available that you can learn and help facilitate your kids learning.
Absolutely. No, don't gloss over that. I know you're about to move on, but I'm gonna stop you right there. Because we have to understand, and I've made this point time and time again, that we have how do I want to put this? We have all of the knowledge of the universe at our fingertips. Mm-hmm. It's not only on our laptops anymore like it used to be. In college, I'd have to go to the library and log in and do all the. I've got that shit on my phone, man. Somebody asked me a question. I'm like, I don't know who that was. Hang on a second. Hey, Google, what year was so-and-so, Magna Carta? And it's like, 1066. Okay. And we have it right there and it's free. Okay. Here's another thing. We've talked about Khan. We've talked about Udemy. Those are both free resources. People don't understand that every course that MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, teaches, which is, by the way, is where I wanted to go to college to begin with. Every course that they have is available online for free. You don't get the sheepskin now, but you get the knowledge. So what do you want? Because I'm going to tell you this, as an employer, and I've been an employer for a lot of years, I could give a rat's ass about your sheepskin. I've had just people teaching for me and working on the floor, doing retail sales when I had a retail store. I've had doctors, I've had lawyers, I've had professors, I've had people with every sheepskin in the world who are working for, I don't know, $9 an hour for me because their degree is in, medieval underwater women's basket weaving or some bullshit like that. It's like, who gives a crap about that? I'm paying you for your performance. And what I need to know is that you're competent enough to run a business when I'm gone. And if you can do that, you can be anything you want to do. And when people leave me, they learn skills from working with me. And when they leave me, I never have sour grapes about it. I'm like, you need to go off and you're setting off your own rocket and make your trajectory good and make yourself into a great person. Everybody's trying, make America great again. What the fuck does that even mean, man? What it means is, how about this first? Make yourself great again. Make yourself great. And the way you do that is by taking the resources that are right at your fingertips. The knowledge of the world is right here. All you have to do is reach out and grab the ring. And if you can do that, you can do any damn thing you want to do. You don't need the government for that. And you don't need 15,000 hours of bullshit. Sorry for all the language, guys. I get really passionate about this. You don't need that. You need to focus on making yourself great. And then you have the tools in your toolbox. You have the arrows in your quiver to be able to go out. And as we say, you leave the cave in the morning, you go out, you kill something, you drag it home and you eat it. Well, now you have the tools to do it. What the hell is wrong with that? And you're your own freaking person. So you maintain your individualism, which the state will beat out of you in school. I'm still waiting on somebody to give me a logical, give me your logos on your argumentation about why this is a bad idea. That's all I'm waiting on. And as to date, I've got nothing. These people have fucking nothing other than they can't admit that they wasted their time in doing the same stupid system that they're sending their kids off to. There's my diatribe. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. It's a hard thing to come to grips with. It's a hard. It's hard to recognize your own failures, and I think a lot of people get hung up on that.
Well, sure they do, because you have to be honest with yourself, and that's a hard pill to swallow, man.
All right. I appreciate it, man. Where can people hear you continue on?
If anybody wants to hear me rant and rave anymore, you can find me on the Liberty Forge podcast. And my archive stuff is still available at RadicaLogic. That's with one L, RadicaLogicPodcast.com. And we're on theseedsofliberty.com, which we own. Yeah, and you'll catch me occasionally on different places, but that's pretty much it. And that's where you'll find most of mainly the Liberty Forge is where you're going to find most of the material. And if you want the heavy hitting stuff that where we're taking on stuff that everybody else is thinking it's the third rail that they're scared to touch, then RadicaLogic podcast would be where to go. There's 28 episodes there that cover everything you can imagine, from homeschooling to anti-war stuff to foreign policy to pretty much anything you can imagine. And you'll get a pretty good idea pretty quick of where I'm at on that. But once again, my disclaimer is, your mileage may vary. Batteries not included. I've been known to cause cancer in the state of California. But these are my ruminations after many, many years of doing education for a living and getting a very good fundamental understanding I don't know a lot about a lot of things, but I do understand this on a very fundamental level. And if that's what you're interested in, and if you're thinking about homeschooling, you may want to take a look at some of that stuff.
All right, I'll put all those links in the show notes. People can go check that out if they forget her. So, all right, thanks. I appreciate it. I know that was a longer interview, but I do think after listening to that, I hope you will agree with me that it was worth it. Merrick is an interesting guy. He's got lots to say. He's seen a lot. When you have lots of experiences to draw from, your view is shaped by all that stuff. It can be beneficial to those around if you are willing to listen and take heed of other people's experiences. That's why I do this, to share other people's experiences so that we can all kind of learn something, take something from it. You might not always agree with someone or somebody's lifestyles, but there's usually something in there that everyone can glean something from. If you're still with me, thank you for that. Appreciate it. If you like what I do here, think about supporting the show. You get some bonus content, there's some merch. I'll even got some seeds I will send you. Who's going to complain about seeds, right? So you can support the show by going to patreon.com/thelibertyhippie. I think for $2.50 a month, you can get, all the bonus content and some seeds and stickers and whatnot. So, or you can just email me and give me some feedback. That's a great way to grow too, is feedback. And of course, if you don't want to support the show, you don't want to give me any feedback, go ahead and leave a review on iTunes. I think that still helps. It may not, but who knows. Anyway, that's all for now. Enjoy your week. Get out there, plan something, do something. Enjoy your life, enjoy your family, whatever you have, and make the best of your time. Get out there, sow those seeds of liberty. We can all reap seeds of freedom together.